Good afternoon, everyone. Faram Fíor Queen Fáil se roimh go léir chuig an ócáid seo inniu. Welcome to the launch of the consultation phase on the development of the revised Early Years Education Inspection Model. It really is great to be joined by so many participants here this afternoon. Thank you all for tuning in to what for us, and indeed for the early education sector, is a really significant day. The proposed revised education inspection model is designed to support the evaluation of education provision and practice in services providing for our youngest children, children from aged birth to 6 years in state-funded preschool education. This really is a landmark day for the Department of Education Inspectorate, and we are very pleased to be joined by Minister for Education Norma Foley and Minister for Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth Roderick O'Gorman. I now invite the Ministers to share their perspectives on this important development.
Díomh go léir. Hello to you all. As Minister for Education, I am delighted to welcome you all, and I thank you for joining us this afternoon. Together with my government colleague, Roderick O'Gorman, Minister for Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth, we are jointly launching this consultation phase for a revised education inspection model for state-funded early years education and care provision for children from birth to 6 years of age. I welcome this public consultation, which will ensure that the care and education of babies and very young children will be further enhanced, supported, quality assured and improved where required. First Five provides a strong framework for cross-government collaboration and cooperation to fully address the care and education needs of all children and young people. Minister O'Gorman and I look forward to progressing the vision of First Five and delivering on our shared commitment to provide excellent education and care to improve the lives of babies, young children and their families. This is fully consistent with my department's important national goal to support and promote excellence in learning for all. I am certain that we will all understand and appreciate the connected nature of learning experiences and how knowledge, skills and the capacity to achieve in education and in life are developed incrementally from early childhood. Positive learning and play experiences early in life enable personal growth, development of interpersonal and social skills, and build the conceptual foundations for further learning and achievement as the child progresses to adulthood. We have a proud tradition in Ireland of providing high-quality education for all children and young people, preparing them to reach their fullest potential as individuals and as citizens. It is not surprising that one of the most popular and well-known Irish proverbs is "Tús lá na hebre," a good start is half the work. In 2010, all young children aged from 3 years were given the opportunity to start their learning journey in early learning and care settings funded through the programme of free preschool provision. Since then, increased state investment for early learning and care provision for children from birth is now truly realising a lifelong continuum of opportunity for learning for all. My department works in partnership with the Department of Children to support the implementation and continued development of early learning and care provision. In particular, the Department of Education Inspectorate has been commissioned to quality assure this provision for preschool education in early learning and care settings since 2016. This programme of inspection complements that carried out by the Tús lá Early Years Inspectorate, who are the statutory regulators for all registered early years services. This is a very good example of joined-up government and cross-departmental cooperation, and I and my government colleague, Minister for Children, Roderick O'Gorman, who will speak with you shortly, are fully committed to building on the success to date and continuing our collaboration to quality assure early education provision for childcare from birth to 6 years, funded through the National Childcare Scheme. As I watched the opening video of children in Carrickbrista and Killegny Early Years Centres in Clonroach, County Wexford, I could see clear evidence of the fact that children are enthusiastic and active learners from the earliest stages of life. When we understand the importance and impact of early learning experiences, this enables us to ensure that the young child's early experiences are of the highest quality. Take, for example, the theme of well-being, a subject that is currently to the fore as we try to harness the learning from the experience of the COVID-19 pandemic and integrate it into our education system. Positive well-being is an essential prerequisite for engagement and achievement in education, and the foundations of positive well-being are established in early childhood. Promoting the development of key learning dispositions such as self-regulation, empathy, curiosity and persistence are vital elements of early education and care. Building core skills such as language and communication, mathematical reasoning and problem solving are all the more possible to achieve through playful approaches to learning in early childhood. This afternoon, you will hear from experts in the field of early education, from parents, providers and early year practitioners. You will be informed about the plans to extend early years education inspection to evaluation of provision for early learning for children from birth. As key stakeholders in early years provision, you will be given details of how you can contribute your perspective to the development of this extended inspection and evaluation process. Ní hagan an óige faoi go chuithe. The energy, enthusiasm and creativity of our youngest citizens is a priceless resource that we as a country cannot afford to waste. I encourage you to fully engage with the diverse perspectives you hear today and to use this opportunity to influence policy and practice to support high-quality early education. But most of all, I encourage you to keep in mind consistently the voices of these young learners. Gur maith agaibh go léir.
I'm delighted to speak to you today alongside my colleague, the Minister for Education, as she launches the consultation on the draft Birth to 6 model for early years education inspections. I'd like to thank Minister Foley and her officials for bringing forward this initiative and for working closely with my department and the TUSLA Early Years Inspectorate in its development. The Department of Education has been conducting early years education inspections at my department's request since 2016. The two inspectorates have played important complementary roles in both quality assurance and supporting quality improvement. First Five committed to the extension of education inspections to under 3s as part of the objective of ensuring a proportionate inspection regime and a more integrated approach to early learning and care. The commitment to an integrated approach reflects the interconnectedness of learning and care throughout early childhood. Learning does not begin at 3 years old. It is a lifelong process that begins at birth, and it is in their very earliest years that children learn the most. I therefore welcome this next step in helping ensure that the learning experience of our youngest children have in early learning and care settings are high quality, positive and give children the very best start in life. This initiative is one of a series of interconnected reforms being introduced in the sector. Other key measures include the new core funding stream I announced recently, which will help us deliver on forthcoming recommendations from the expert group on the funding model to strengthen quality, affordability and access to services. The establishment of a joint labour committee for early years services to improve pay and conditions of employment. A workforce development plan which will be completed shortly. The National Action Plan for Childminding, which I launched in April. The extension of supports through the National Childcare Scheme in 2022. The review of the operating model for the sector, and a country policy review being carried out by the OECD. This ambitious programme of reforms, led by my department, working in conjunction with the Department of Education and other departments and agencies, is a clear recognition of the value of high quality early learning and care, not only for children and families, but for society as a whole. This reform agenda is underpinned by a significant increase in investment. The additional 78 million I secured in Budget 2022 will bring investment in the sector to a record 716 million. We will continue to build on this into the future with the aim of reaching the government commitment of investing nearly €1 billion a year by 2028. I'd like to encourage as many of you as possible to engage with this consultation process. It's an opportunity for you to share your insights and knowledge and to help shape government policy. I look forward to hearing the outcomes of the consultation and to working with Minister Foley to ensure the successful rollout of this initiative. Thanks very much.
Our thanks to both Minister Foley and Minister O'Gorman for their very positive words of encouragement. It is great to hear both ministers reiterate and reinforce the cross-government commitment to First Five, which, as you know, is our national strategy to support the lives of babies, young children and their families. The Department of Education Inspectorate is honoured to be able to play a role in the implementation of First Five. Dr. Harold Hislop, Chief Inspector of the Department of Education Inspectorate, will now share with you some of the rationale and intentions of the Inspectorate in relation to the extension of early years education inspection to provision for children aged from birth to 3 years.
I'm Harold Hislop and I'm Chief Inspector at the Department of Education.
Minister Foley and Minister O'Gorman have both articulated a strong commitment to ensuring that the educational experiences of all children from birth onwards are as good as they can be. What's the particular role of the Department of Education Inspectorate in this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And before I talk to that, can I just say how welcome it is to have Minister O'Gorman and Minister Foley with us today and launching this consultation, because it's a really important step for all of us involved in the system. And it's really good too to have Toby Wolfe here from the Department of Children and Fiona MacDonald too from the Tusla Early Years Inspectorate. To get to your question, well, we've just been watching that video of young children in Killegny and in the Carrickbridge, the early years setting. And I think what you saw there was the energy, the enthusiasm for learning, didn't you? The babies, the toddlers, the young children in those rooms. And they showed us, I suppose, a capacity and an enjoyment about learning. And I suppose what that says to me is it reinforces to me just how important it is for us to make sure that period of their lives is as good as it possibly can be. And that's why we are interested in being involved in it. And what we realise, we're very conscious in the Department of Education Inspectorate at how those competences start growing from birth. And they're really vital for all of their lives. That period itself from birth to 6 is so vitally important. And, since 2016, we've been involved in evaluating early years provision in the ECHE scheme. And we've been delighted to be involved at that stage. And we've really, I think, helped and contributed to its development. So we were delighted when the Minister for Children asked us to extend our work to the birth to 3 phase, as well as the 3 to 6 that we're already in. It's those learning dispositions and everything are just as important there, and we're really looking forward to working in that phase. And I suppose too, we've developed a particular approach to inspection as well. We want one that works in collaboration with practitioners, that really helps them to improve the provision that young children experience. We brought that initially to schools. We've used it since 2016 in the early years setting, and I think very successfully. And now we're really looking forward to doing it in the birth to 3 phase.
Can you tell us a little bit more about why inspection of settings for babies and toddlers is now being included in the remit of the Department of Education Inspectorate?
Well, I suppose fundamentally, all of us know that the first 1,000 days of a child's life are really the most critical for their development. There is no more important phase of their lives. And if you want to have a really positive influence on the way that they grow and learn and develop, you need to put a lot of emphasis on care on that early phase. And we know then there are lots of dispositions that are evident in developing at that stage. You know, the disposition for self-regulation, for their empathy, their persistence even as a learner. All of that is really strongly influenced by the experiences they have at that early phase. And we also know that the core experiences are also about their social and emotional development at that stage as well. So all aspects of the child's development and learning are really in growth phase at that point. And what we hope to do is through evaluation to support practitioners to support that sort of learning and development. We have, I said, brought a particular perspective to inspection. It's a collaborative one that says practitioners are working closely with children and we work closely with those practitioners. And educational focused inspections will be, I hope, really supportive and helpful to those practitioners. And I think too, we'd hope that they'll be supportive for parents as well, because we'll emphasise in the information we provide and in the reports we produce just how much both care and education experiences are important in the early years of a child's life. And I think we're fully convinced that bringing that education focused experience to the birth to 3 phase will really complement the work of early years settings, and it'll also complement the work of our colleagues in the TUSLA Early Years Inspectorate. We work hand in glove with them, and this will really be supportive of the perspective that they bring to the quality of provision there too. I mean, even there was a recent OECD report, in fact a series of OECD reports on early years and on quality in education, and also on social and emotional development of children and their well-being, and all of them show just how important that early phase is. And in fact, more and more countries are bringing both an education lens as well as a care lens to all phases of a child's life, from birth, in fact, right all the way up to 18.
You refer to the work of the TUSLA Early Years Inspectorate. Could you elaborate a little on how education inspection complements the statutory regulation undertaken by the TUSLA Early Years Inspectorate?
Yeah, one of the groups that we have worked really most closely with since 2015, when we were first asked to do education-focused inspections in the 3 to 6 range. One of the most important groups for us was working with TUSLA. I mean, TUSLA have enormous experience and expertise in the early years provision phase. And they have done an enormous amount to help raise standards, to monitor provision really effectively in that setting. And we worked very closely with them in 2015 and 16 to make sure that our work complemented theirs. It brought an additional perspective and lens that helped all practitioners and helped provide a better service for young children, which is what we both really are very deeply committed to. We coordinate our inspections very closely so that we don't overburden settings. We plan them so that we don't arrive or inspect at the same time or near each other. And we also have then formally memorandums of agreement so that we can share information between us appropriately as well. But I think, to be honest, the thing for us about working with TUSLE is the closeness of the professional relationships. We're both committed to the same goals. We share some training and CPD programs together. We've run joint conferences, so we make sure we understand each other's perspective. And I think as we've grown along since 2015 and 16, that working relationship has grown stronger as the years have gone on. We've shared each other's frameworks with each other. For instance, TUSLE has been really helpful to us when we were constructing the sort of areas and frameworks that we look at in terms of quality. We've also contributed to discussions about their frameworks. We've shared expertise and experiences about actually conducting inspections and how that works and how we can make it better for practitioners. And we work then closely too with our colleagues in the Department of Children. So we meet regularly to discuss issues, hammer out problems, and make sure that we're providing collectively and with Better Start as well a really effective service that helps settings and practitioners and ultimately parents and children to enjoy a better early childhood learning and care experience. So as we work to extend our work into the birth to 3 phase, we're looking forward to even deepening the collaboration between Fiona and Eileen, who lead the TUSLE Early Years Inspectorate, and then Toby and Anne-Marie Brooks in the Department of Children, and Margaret Rogers, who's leading Better Start, because we all have to work together to provide a really effective service for settings, for parents, and ultimately for children.
As an education inspectorate, you'll shortly have responsibility for evaluating the quality of education provision for children from birth to 18 years of age. What does that mean for the inspectorate? And has the inspectorate changed or evolved since education inspections commenced in early years settings?
Yeah, it's really been interesting to work in the early years settings. And you're right, it actually has changed us quite a lot. I think we've brought things to the sector that I've talked about, the particular approach to working collaboratively with professionals, with parents and so on in the sector. But, it changed us too. It brought into the inspectorate a whole new group of people who had years of practical experience in early years settings. Every single early years inspector that we have, they've had tremendous experience both teaching and looking after children in early years settings. They've led those settings themselves, and they're able to share all that expertise back to the sector. So that's been really important. And of course, they've shared that expertise with the rest of the inspectorate as well. And boy, have they changed us. They've been a really challenging group because they've asked us fundamental questions about the way we work with practitioners, with teachers as well. And how important early years is in its own right, but also as it provides a foundation for further learning. And that's been really beneficial for us because it has given us line of sight right the way across from birth right up to the end of second level education. It has helped us to see where the transition points need to be addressed. I've said before, schools needed to have really regard to what early years provision was doing, just as early years needs to think about schools. And it has that means it has enriched our practices in infant classrooms, which we've been quite critical of as well at times, as not being early years centred and child centred enough. So that's one thing it has done. I suppose too, having responsibilities in the period from birth to 6 has really allowed us to comment on a lot of the things that you need to put in place for good early years education. So we've contributed a lot to the discussions about the training and professional development of early years practitioners. We've also commented in inspection reports and in reports to government and ministers as well about the whole funding and support and importance of early years education. And to be able to do that in a context where you're also talking about it in terms of schools and secondary schools as well as early years is a really powerful position to be able to articulate. So the continuity for the young child right the way from 6 to 18, we can influence the practitioner's education, we can influence the provision itself, and hopefully then we can gather data which is, credible, strong data about both challenges and issues and the enormous strengths that are in the system all the way across. And I suppose on top of that, I mean, we're also in a position to be able to communicate a lot of important information to parents about provision right from the earliest stages of child's development right up to the end of the second level education, and to allow them, to support them to see the different phases, to see what's important in them, and to see how each of them contribute to their child's development as the child grows and matures. But when you look at those children, if you go back to those children that we saw right at the beginning of this, just look at how much learning was going on in those few seconds that you saw. And getting that educational experience right, making sure that you have practitioners who are able to maximize the benefit for children there, making sure that the whole curriculum and the activities and the play and the environment that goes on, making sure that is right, makes such a difference to individual children. It's absolutely critical for learning. I mean, the minute you're born, you're on the learning journey, and we want to be with you every step of the way.
An mai an obair seo siúl is Stephen Alon Gaeilge.
Bé cínte ón am hasímar ag obair sna Stephen Alúla bhíana. Bhíamar ag obair sna Nínri agus sna Stephen eile a bhíon ag obair tríbhán na Gaeilge. Agus bhíamid ag déanamh ar goidibre tríbhán na Gaeilge Thomas na Stephen sin. Agus inis tugan an chéam nua seo, tugan se seans dóin an obair sin a dhéanamh leis na tlachtóirí luúna bhliana agus na daoine eile atá ag obair sna Stephen sin. Leis na daoine sin a bhíon ag obair leis na páistí is óige baimid in an obair sin a bheasúnú, takeíocht de thuairt duna tlachtóirí, cóirla chorar thuama, agus táid ag súil go mór le sin. Agus is tócha dúine thoma, mar a luigh mé níos luithe, tugan an céim seo seans dúin I dachas inis tríbhán na Gaeilge éáil ó hús go deireadh agus baimid an cuarsa agus dulcan cí na daltaí an tréimhse fad éáil agus takeíocht a thuairt.
How will this extended inspection model differ from the current early years education inspection model?
Well, one thing that's really important about the way we develop inspection models is that we do it in conjunction with the practitioners. So we work collaboratively with practitioners. We also use a lot of research to support our work. So we've had an extensive research before today. We've been doing extensive research on how inspections and evaluations are conducted in other countries in this phase. But we've also talked a lot to settings and practitioners about what they would expect to see, what would be helpful to them. And we're trying to build that in. Now, in fact, a lot of that research and a lot of those conversations have shown us that fundamentally the model that we've been using in the 3 to 6 in the EYEI inspections actually is very suitable for this stage. But there are aspects of it that need to be adjusted for the birth to 3 phase. And that's what we really want to get at. And I want in the consultation to listen to the voices of practitioners and parents too, and other people involved in early years education, to really fine tune it and get it right for the sector, because that's so important. So we're really looking forward to people commenting on it and providing suggestions to us.
Harold, thank you very much for that comprehensive overview. Have you any concluding comments to share with participants today?
Well, I think my first message would be to the participants, everybody who's watching this launch today, because I really want to thank them for taking the time to join us in this. And I suppose my key and strongest message is to every one of them. I want them, this is an opportunity. We want to get this right. We know how important early years education is. We know the vital work that is done in the early years sector. And we want to support it, to encourage it, to help to improve it as best we can. And we can do that best if every single practitioner works with us. So people listening today, they have lots of ideas and suggestions about how to improve our work. We want to hear them and we want to listen to them. That's really important for me. And I suppose I'd say I'd make a promise too, that we will work collaboratively with settings. We want this to work for settings. We want it to work for parents and for children. And we know that means we have to be flexible, we have to think about the suggestions made to us, and also to evolve it over time, and then to take the learning from it and to make sure that works for the setting, for the practitioners, for the children, but also for government and for the ministries that we work for too. Because we have messages that we can pick up and information we can pick up that will help to prove the whole sector for us. And I'm really looking forward to that. And I want to thank everyone who's joining us and the people who will engage in the consultation for everything, for the criticisms, the suggestions that they will give to us, so that we can get our work for birth to 3 absolutely right, that we can make it even better for the children in settings, and so that every child will have the sort of experiences we saw those children have in Colegny and Carrick-Briste. So my final word, gur míle maith go léir.
Thank you, Harold. Gur míle maith agat. As Harold has said, the model of inspection used by the Department of Education inspectorate in all education settings, whether schools or preschools, is based on collaboration and open dialogue. In this instance, and in an early years context here today, we are particularly pleased to share with you the perspectives of professional practitioners and parents. Firstly, we will hear from Ciara McGinn. Ciara is the owner of Sunflowers Preschool in Shinrone, County Offaly, and Ciara will give you some insight into the impact of an early years education inspection on her practice. We will also hear from Orla Doyle. Orla is the manager of Colegny and Carrick-Briste Early Learning Centres in Wexford, and that's where the lovely opening video of the children was recorded. And finally, we'll hear from a parent, Diarmuid O'Cossage, who is a dad to Oisín, aged 5, and Óran, who is 2.
Overall, the whole experience was a learning process for us. We realised that it is a very positive experience. We learned great things about ourselves, strengths that we are doing, and we also had support with areas that we need to improve on, to enhance our quality. We got great tips and feedback of different suggestions that we can do to ensure that quality is always of a high standard. So we got advice around planning, and we now smart plan. We plan together. We know that we can plan in the moment. Our plans can change to suit the needs of the children. And planning in our service is personal. It's personal to us and personal to this service, and it works really well. We got some tips based around environments and how we can support the children within the environment. We define more areas within the setting, which is working really well and very smoothly. The children are engaging more in the spaces. And we're seeing lots more play and learning and development since we have made these changes in our environment. instantly achievable for us was we were just so keen to get going and get started. We just wanted to stay improving. And so we went to the Astra Shield practice guide first. We started to familiarise ourselves with it, and we decided to use some of the action plan tools and focus on our environment, how we can use our space, and how we can make it more suitable for the children that we have. Overall, just the feel-good factor after the inspection, it gave staff such a great boost. Like, there can be so much negativity attached to early years, as we all know, but I feel that the DE inspection is just a real opportunity for staff and services to really enhance the great things that they do and embrace your service. It's just a really, really positive experience, and you feel so good after you've done it. I feel we're a completely different setting than we were back when we had our first inspection. If I had to pinpoint one thing, it would be planning and understanding planning. The new system that we have that suits our service just takes so much pressure and stress off me. It's working really well. Staff find it really easy to follow, and we're all on the same page, and now we all understand planning and we can use it to the best of our ability. If I could give any service provider or early years manager any bit of advice, personally, would be just utilise the supports that you possibly can. Link in with your county childcare committee, familiarise yourself with the inspection process, continue to look online at all the different inspections that are going to be published from other services, and link in with the practice guide. It's a really, really handy tool, and it's very useful, and it will change your service. Just continue to link in with all those supports.
My name is Orla Doyle, and we lived here in Wexford. So we have two settings. It's actually Carrigbishta and actually Calegny early years. So we're actually based outside Enniscorthy. And yeah, we love the outdoors and we love environments, and yeah, really, I suppose the goal is always to reflect on our practice and give it all back to the children. Fundamentally, it's just a nurturing approach where everything is very slowed down, and that is a very conscious decision. We take the clocks out of the room, in fact, because it really, for a small child time, we go with a routine, but it's very fluid and it's very flexible to the needs of the child. That combined then with our love of outdoors, it gives a real holistic sense of the child, and yeah, it's very much, it's great fun, and we love what we do, so we're very, very passionate about it. That then, it also, it's about educating our families then as well, about this kind of sense of well-being that their child will have when they're with us. So it's a real partnership, yeah. It's a very collaborative approach between us all stakeholders. I think it's a really positive move. Probably it will give actual recognition to everybody for that the work that is done from 0 to 3. And now that we can see that the sector is becoming a lot more professionalised, with that will come expectations and standards, and that's what is just good for everybody. Yeah, absolutely. I suppose when I would break that down then even a little bit further, and we would think of the parents, and we all know what it's like to have small children, and sometimes they're tired and exhausted and all of that. This is one thing less that they have to worry about now. This has been taken over by the department, where the quality assurance will be given, and that can only be a good thing, yeah. I suppose from my own point of view, I can see that my team are going to get recognised. The work that they do is going to be valued on a par with every other sector of education, and that to me is really, really important, that the work that they do is amazing, yeah. From a child's perspective, it will give a more cohesive approach to it, when we see for the child how important it is to slow down, how important the environment is, the continuity of care, yeah, and that all marries well with the guidelines that will be put in place, I hope. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, yeah.
My name's Dermot. I've two boys, Oisin and Oran. Oisin's 5 years old. He's attended creche for the first time when he was 11 months old. And our youngest son, Oran, started creche when he was 12 months old. We have a local childcare facility just down the road from us. And we chose that on a couple of factors. Chatted to local parents and got some feedback from them around local kids have gone to that school. It was very well thought of amongst the community. It was close to us, it was affordable. So it kind of hit a lot of buttons that we wanted for our childcare facility for our children. So when we attended the creche, we were very happy with the setting. We thought it was the class sizes were small. The creche workers were very engaged with the children and seemed to really care for the children as well, which really kind of made us happier with the choice of choosing that childcare setting. So once Oisin attended, he had some difficulty settling in at the time, but the childcare workers really supported him during that transition. So we were able to kind of spend a little extra time sitting in with him for a few minutes in the morning time. There was a great feedback from the childcare workers as well around how he was getting on during the day and he was happy when he was being settled. So that really gave us even more support from the childcare session that we could, and we were happy to leave him there, as difficult as it was to put your child into childcare. So I think he then started doing the ECC when he was 3. And again, there was great feedback from the childcare session and the childcare workers around stuff he was learning, songs he was doing, and things like that. So I think it really set Oisin up for primary school, which he only attended in September this year. That when he attended primary school, he was quite mature. He was quite able to look after himself. He was able to settle in much better because of the experiences he had during the ECC and during the childcare setting. So I think when Oran is attended now, it was quite difficult during the COVID period, but we found he settled in quite well because he had experienced his brother attending childcare and attending a childcare session as well. So I think that was, and we find now that the ECC is especially helpful for providing a framework for the childcare workers to work in and supports them and gives them guidance around how the child should be developing and developmental stages the child needs to be hitting at that point. So if the Department of Education was to start inspecting 0 to 3 years, well, that can only be beneficial to the child and in turn the parent, because it provides a framework and a guidance for the childcare workers to develop those stages with the children as well, and provide guidance for them so that they can be better at what they're doing. Well, it's definitely there's peace of mind there that there's for sure. So the peace of mind as a parent that the childcare workers are being held to a standard, that they're being given guidance around how they should be performing or how they should be teaching, working with the children, and that's been kind of inspected and that there's feedback from the Department of Education to the childcare session to improve or change their ways or anything that needs to be done.
Our thanks to Ciara, Orla and Dermot for sharing those perspectives. Harold mentioned the close working relationship that the Department of Education Inspectorate has with the Tusla Early Years Inspectorate and with the Department of Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth. I now invite comment from Fiona MacDonald and Toby Wolfe. Fiona is the National Services Director of the Children's Services Regulation in Tusla, and Toby is the Principal Officer in the Department of Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth.
Ballyíorh a dhéanúis le go léir. Bhuail an buchas a gáil libh as ochara thuairt dom an seo tróna inniu. Is Misha, Fiona MacDonald, and I lead Children's Services Regulation in Tusla, the Child and Family Agency. Tusla, as you're aware, is responsible for registering and inspecting early years provision in Ireland. We register preschools, playgroups, creches, drop-in centres, some childminders and after-school services. We have over 6,000 services registered with Tusla today. The role of our inspectorate is to promote and monitor the safety, quality of care and support of the child in early years provision in Ireland in accordance with the regulations. It is important that parents can be confident that the early years service they choose for their baby or young person is a safe and nurturing place where the child can grow, learn and develop to their full potential. We have been inspecting since 1997, a time when children were minded in unregulated services. Since then, a lot of positive change has occurred in the sector, with increased investment, improved regulation, improved stakeholder support, and the impact of introducing a qualification requirement, to mention a few. In TUSLA, our image of the child, like many, is based on the belief that the child is competent, unique, and an active participant in his or her learning and development. In TUSLA, we place the child at the centre of all decisions that we make every day. The Department of Education commenced inspections of the early years sector 5 years ago, and in that time we have worked collaboratively with our inspectorate. We meet regularly and have joint conferences as an opportunity to share our learning from inspections. While we both inspect early years services, our jobs are different, but aligned. It is important to both inspectorates that our inspections do not collide and that we work diligently together to minimise the burden on providers. Today, on behalf of TUSLA, I would like to welcome the consultation of the 0 to 6 inspection framework. We acknowledge the importance of education in the state and of the role of the Department of Education inspectors in promoting the learning needs of our youngest citizens. I want to thank the Department of Education Inspectorate for consulting with us at the earlier stages in the framework's development. In TUSLA, we are committed to working with our colleagues in education to explain to the sector how a TUSLA early years inspection and a Department of Education early years inspection are different, but both are complementary. As an inspector with TUSLA, or similar in the Department of Education, we have the potential to impact the lives of over 140,000 children in Ireland today who are cared for across the country in early years provision. We take that very seriously and are proud of the level of engagement and work undertaken with our external stakeholders and our many partners in supporting and driving continuous improvement in early years provision. We look forward to continued positive engagement with the Early Years Inspectorate in the Department of Education and wish them every success with the 0 to 6 framework consultation. Gur raibh míle maith agaibh go léir as uc éisteacht liom. Slán.
Hello, my name is Toby Wolfe and I lead the Early Years Quality Unit in the Department of Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth. As others have already introduced this important development, I'll just speak briefly to welcome it and to thank colleagues in the Department of Education for all their work on it. The Department of Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth has been working closely with the Department of Education and the TUSLA Early Years Inspectorate to strengthen the inspection and quality assurance system. And this next step in the process of reform, signalled in First 5, is one of the most important. As Minister O'Gorman said, extending the inspection of education provision to early learning and care settings for children of all ages, from birth to 6 years old, is central to the move towards a more integrated approach to inspection. Children's learning and care are deeply interconnected and integrated throughout their early years, right from birth. In my role, working on the quality of provision, including responsibility for the regulation and inspection of early learning and care and school-age childcare, I see on a daily basis how important the inspection system is, both in ensuring standards are met and in supporting quality improvement. Of course, inspections can at times feel like a burden for those being inspected, but inspections are also an opportunity to demonstrate and enhance good practice. I'm confident that the process underway today will bring an increased focus on the quality of children's learning experiences in their earliest years. The extension of education inspections to services for younger children is a key step in a wider process of ongoing reform of our regulation and inspection system that the Department of Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth is undertaking, working in close cooperation with both the Department of Education Inspectorate and the TUSLA Early Years Inspectorate. Together, we are working to ensure appropriate and proportionate regulations and inspection models, and, wherever possible, to streamline inspection processes for services. This process of reform aims to achieve the best possible outcomes for children's development and well-being, to provide assurance for families, and to deliver a practical and proportionate system for providers. I'd like to acknowledge the huge amount of work that the Department of Education has put into the development of this model. Both the consultation phase and the field trials will be important in shaping the new model, ensuring we get it right, and ensuring successful rollout of these inspections next year. So I'd encourage you to take part in the consultation. Once again, may I thank colleagues in both the Department of Education and TUSLA for their commitment to quality assurance and their dedication to ensuring the best possible outcomes for all children. And may I congratulate the Department of Education for taking this important step forward in the First Five strategy. Thank you.
Our thanks once again to TUSLA and to the Department of Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth for their ongoing support and collaboration in our work. I would now like to turn to Dr. Marisa Dignan, who is the Assistant Chief Inspector in the Department of Education with lead responsibility for early years education inspection. Marisa will give an overview of the development of the early years education inspection model, and of course, most importantly for our purposes here today, Marisa will outline details of the consultation process. We will also have contributions from Elaine Hines, Jenny Henson, Trina O'Connor, Catherine Cullen, and Elaine, Jenny, Trina and Catherine are all early years inspectors in the Department of Education. Marisa.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. Good afternoon, everyone. As Yvonne has just introduced, I am the Assistant Chief Inspector in the Department of Education Inspectorate with responsibility for our programme of early years education inspection. I'm really delighted to be here today, and although we can't be together in person, I have to say, looking at the participant list, I see so many familiar names, and hopefully sometime soon I'll get to see those familiar faces and we can discuss these important developments in the early years sector together. As others have already said, today is a milestone moment for the Department of Education Inspectorate as we begin the final stages of extending our programme of inspection to the early provision for children from birth to 6 years. It's been really positive already this afternoon to hear the welcoming messages from Ministers Foley and Minister O'Gorman, and also the very encouraging speech from our Chief Inspector, Dr. Harold Hislop, and the encouragement of our colleagues and partners in the Department of Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth, and from Fiona in TUSLA. But dare I say that it is even more encouraging and also a little bit daunting to hear the trust and encouragement expressed by parents and particularly by early years professionals who have already experienced our inspections and who have great hopes and anticipation for the impact of our inspection programme with our youngest children. We understand that for some, the innovation of the Department of Education Inspectorate moving to evaluate provision for babies and toddlers is quite new. But as Harold has said, learning begins from birth, and we know that children have an innate drive and curiosity about the world around them, and that if we can optimise those early learning experiences, we can really set them on a wonderful start to their lifelong learning journey. Our challenge as an education inspectorate is to make visible those quality, highly effective early education experiences for all children. In fulfilling this brief, we hope to meet a number of challenges. First of all, quality assuring provision and practice for all children aged birth to 6 years, in line with our published quality framework and also our national practice frameworks, ASHTR, the curriculum framework, and SHIELTA, the quality framework. We also want to support capacity building for quality improvement
across the whole professional workforce engaged in providing care, learning and development experiences for children aged birth to 6. And of course, we are challenged to report to providers, practitioners, parents and policymakers on the scope and nature of early education provision and practice being offered to children and their families. As Harold said earlier, we've adopted a collaborative approach in the last 5 years to delivering these goals in the preschool rooms, the ECHE-funded preschool rooms in early learning and care settings. And many of you will be already familiar with our Guide to Early Years Education Inspection that guides and informs all of our evaluation work. Initially, we developed this guide in 2016, and then after the first year of our work, we re-evaluated the content of the guide, and we engaged with many of you here today in the review of the content and the processes of inspection, and republished a guide in 2018. Coincidentally, at that time, we had the publication of the most important national strategy from an early years perspective, the whole of government strategy for babies, young children and their families, First 5. And we were delighted to see within that strategy a commission to extend our education-focused inspections to the whole range of provision for children from birth to 6 years. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, our developments were delayed and our time frame has been pushed out beyond where we had hoped to be at this stage. But we are very grateful that we have finally arrived at this point today, and we can begin this final and most important consultation phase and to engage with you, all our partners and stakeholders, as we co-construct and develop our new revised guide to enable us to extend our evaluation to provision for children from birth. During this time, this consultation phase, we will also conduct field trials in early learning and care settings who have volunteered to work with us to help us understand and evaluate the impact of our inspections in rooms where babies and toddlers are being cared for. We are very grateful to all of you who have volunteered to work with us. In our previous development processes, we found this work to be absolutely invaluable. It really gives us the insight that we need to understand how best to deliver our inspection programme to make it easy for practitioners, accessible for parents, but most importantly, to pay dividends in terms of the quality of children's experiences in those early learning and care settings. The draft guide that we are looking for you to give us feedback on has 2 component parts. This is our existing guide, and as I said, many of you will be familiar with it. When you see the draft guide we're looking for your feedback on, you probably will find that it looks very familiar. And again, this is not surprising. And as Harold has said, when we looked at the literature around how children develop and learn from birth, our outcome statements and our standards are very much applicable to children under 3 as they are for children over 3. What we would like you to do is to engage with the quality framework and think about your own perspective. Think about where you are in your practice. Are you working with children? Are you a parent? Are you a lecturer? Are you preparing the next generation of professional early years practitioners? All your views are welcome. We welcome all your perspectives on the content of our quality framework. The second element of the guide that we would like your feedback on are the processes of inspection. These processes of inspection are broken down into before, during and after inspection and give you an outline of the typical approach that we take to our evaluation activities. For example, it refers to the notification period, which is currently 2 working days, or the reports processing that we undertake once we have completed our inspection in any early learning and care setting. We understand that it may be challenging for many to understand how we are going to approach our inspection of provision and practice with children under 3. And whilst our framework is very comprehensive and very open and transparent in the way that it communicates our vision for high quality practice, in order to support you and to give you a reference point when you are considering our framework, we have devised 4 key messages. These 4 key messages have been drawn from our listening phase, where we sat down and we talked to practitioners in settings, and they helped us to understand those very important issues that we must consider when we are trying to raise the quality of provision for children under 3. We've also drawn from the literature and the research that tells us about how best to support learning and development in these very early stages. I would now like to share with you, through Jenny, Trina, Elaine and Catherine, these key messages, and I hope that you find them interesting, and I hope they will be informative when you are conducting your review of our guide to inspection.
In this section, we will provide an overview of the key messages which underpin the Birth to 6 inspection model. This whole of government strategy to improve the lives of babies, young children and their families laid the foundation for the development for the extension of the current early years inspection model to allow for the evaluation of early education provision for children from birth to 6 in state-funded settings. First 5 contains a comprehensive range of actions to promote, support and enhance the lives of our youngest citizens. These include a strong commitment to the provision of high-quality early learning and care, and the Department of Education Inspectorate is developing the capacity of the Early Years Education Inspection Model, currently used to support evaluation in the ECCE rooms in early education settings, to extend to the evaluation of centre-based provision for children aged from birth to 3 years. The aims of the Birth to 6 inspection model are to quality assure state-funded provision for education and care for children from birth to 6 years, to promote coherence and continuity in learner experience across the education system from birth to 18 years, and to promote common understandings of quality in early education across all stakeholders, especially parents, practitioners, and primary school teachers. Today, we are launching the public consultation phase for this action, another key step along the first 5 roadmap to high quality provision of services and supports for young children and their families. The initial step towards developing a revised early years inspection model was to conduct an extensive review of research and practice underpinning inspection of education and care provision for children aged from birth to 6 years. This activity confirmed the continued relevance of the quality framework at the heart of the inspection model for the entire age cohort and is a positive support as this next phase of development and consultation with stakeholders commences. During the review of the quality framework, a number of key messages emerged, which we believe are central to understanding the rationale and objectives of early years education inspection of provision and pedagogy with children. These key messages are supported by research into how human learning and development happens and what the optimal conditions to enhance and encourage each child's potential are. Within the specific context of birth to 6, These are considered to form the basis of high-quality learning experiences, along with many other elements outlined in the framework. There are also clear links with the principles of Astor and Shielta. There are 4 key messages. The child at the centre of practice. The child is an active learner. Building strong connections to support children's learning and laying the foundations for future learning. We will now take you through each of these key messages in a little more detail.
The first key message places the child at the centre of practice. Article 12 of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child states that the child's views must be considered and taken into account in all matters affecting him or her. The Department of Education Inspectorate is strongly committed to this principle and has established a range of practices to integrate consultation and the voice of the learner into our inspection models. In our approach to early years education inspection, we identify a rights-based approach as one which places the child at the centre of planning for all provision and practice in an education setting. A rights-based approach underpins an inspection processes and permeates the 4 areas of practice within our early years education inspection framework. Our work as inspectors is governed by a code of practice, which informs our day-to-day work. It places a significance on the quality of children's early learning experiences and also gives due weight to the views and opinions of learners. The principles underpinning our EYEI model recognise the significance of early childhood as a distinct and important phase and is cognizant that each child has their own set of experiences and a unique life story. The EYEI framework is informed by Astor, the Early Childhood Curriculum Framework, and Shielta, the National Quality Framework for Early Childhood Education, as well as national and international practice. These frameworks incorporate the key elements of best practice in early learning and care and places the child at the centre of this practice. We are now going to take a brief look at how a rights-based approach may be translated into daily practices which have a very real impact on young children's learning experiences. Let's look at some examples of how this can be experienced by the child. A core feature of a rights-based approach within early learning and care practice is one in which children are valued as unique and active citizens. From a child's perspective, when practitioners understand and respect the different ways I learn and express myself, I can reach my full potential as a learner. When I am supported to participate in decision-making in a way that reflects my stage of development, I'm developing independence, empathy, an understanding of the rights of others, and a realization that I am heard and have potential to influence change. A child-centred pedagogical approach to curriculum development and implementation has a positive impact on the quality of young children's learning experiences and can enhance their overall well-being. Early education and care experiences play a significant role in facilitating a rights-based approach where children are enabled from infancy to exercise choice and to use initiative as active participants in their own learning. Literature highlights the importance of understanding the many ways that children express, explore, and connect their thoughts and feelings. This provides support for each child's individual learning style and promotes their holistic development and learning outcomes. A positive sense of self-identity is important for socialization and creates strong foundations on which future learning and interactional patterns are predicted. It is crucial that each child feels validated and reflected in the setting so that their sense of value, importance, and pride in who they are is nurtured. A shared vision and strong ethos that values inclusive practice creates a learning environment that engages all children in the setting, irrespective of gender, ability, age, ethnicity, or background. Research indicates that when children are included in exploring issues that are meaningful and important to them, they begin to understand diversity and inclusivity to a greater degree. The UN Convention on the Rights of the Child states that children should have a right to participate in democracy in ways that reflect their age and maturity. Consultation with children is particularly important as it recognises them as competent co-constructors of knowledge and as young citizens in early education settings, the local community, and the wider world. Purposeful consultation with children places them at the centre of decision-making processes and provides valuable insights for implementing inclusive practices. Inspectors actively engage with children in a variety of ways during inspection processes to gain an insight into their views and their experiences. Here we can see a clear rationale for adopting a rights-based approach.
The second key message relates to the child as an active learner, rich in potential. A key message that is central to the early years education framework is the child as an active learner. Research supports active learning as foundational to a child's positive experience of education. When children experience learning as a joyful, fulfilling, and engaging activity early in life, they develop positive learning dispositions that are an important contribution to achievement through their education journey. The idea of the child as an active learner locates the child as an investigator and explorer, actively discovering and utilizing his or her senses to learn about the world around them. When children discover their ability to influence the world around them, this stimulates curiosity, creativity, and motivates the development of higher order thinking skills. Active learning places the child at the center of the learning process so that his or her knowledge and abilities are extended through the curriculum. Through active learning, children develop vital capacities such as resilience, perseverance, and independence, and develop their identity as competent learners. When we reflect on the child as an active learner, many characteristics may be evoked. Perhaps we contemplate on self-directed exploration, in which the children are stimulated and engaged, or on supportive interactions, in which practitioners respond appropriately to the children and maximize upon teachable moments. As part of the early years education framework, we observe these experiences, evaluating how they are facilitated, supported, and documented. Noticing when a child is intrinsically motivated through inquiry and curiosity, and where their choices and decisions are heard, respected, and acted upon, supports an active learning approach which is foundational to young children's learning experiences. Sensory motor experiences are fundamental to a young child's learning and brain development. They help a child grow and learn by developing self-image, body awareness, and coordination. Sensory stimulation can be nurtured through active learning experiences in which the children have opportunities to take risks, explore, and be curious both indoors and outdoors. The child as an active learner requires attuned and supportive practitioners, as well as a variety of resources and experiences to explore. Facilitating these opportunities for children requires flexibility, organisation and reflection, to know and understand what support is required, and when to step back to encourage appropriate challenge. This professional practice is essential to enable children to progress in their learning and become competent partners in their unique learning journey. Research evidence strongly suggests that active learning is central to a child's learning and development. We know that babies are born with a natural curiosity and interest to engage with others and explore their environment. When practitioners are responsive to this natural motivation, they can support children to make connections in their learning and to develop strategies for thinking and reasoning. Toddlers continue this natural curiosity, and when empowered to explore, can experience a sense of achievement which develops their confidence and intrinsic motivation for learning. Similarly, young children can learn to successfully negotiate roles in active play situations which support them to develop a range of social skills as they interact with their peers. As they interact and cooperate with others, they are developing an ability to express their emotions, ideas, and feelings in a variety of ways. At times, active learning requires the guidance and support from attuned and responsive practitioners to scaffold the children's learning and extend their experiences. Serve and return interactions create opportunities for babies to learn about social skills and communication. Therefore, when young children experience warm, responsive interactions and learning experience, this has a positive impact on brain structure and future learning. Such interactive and active learning experiences have the potential to impact on their learning associations in the moment, when they move to a formal school environment, and beyond. When children have the opportunity to engage in prolonged and meaningful play experiences, it encourages young children to self-initiate their own learning. This promotes intrinsic motivation, which supports them to explore and master their learning through self-discovery. When children experience active learning opportunities, including risky play, they gain confidence in their abilities, develop resilience, and self-control.
The third message relates to the importance of strong connections to support children's learning. Here we can see an example of the various connections and relationships that influence the child's development and the important role of the early education setting in building and supporting them. This message is based around the understanding that children learn and develop in the context of relationships and connections within the home, the early education setting, and the wider community. The inspection framework recognises the development of strong connections as key to quality and provision for all children. It identifies the all-important work of settings in fostering and nurturing connections and relationships, and the ways in which this influences children's well-being and lifelong learning. There is a clear rationale for building strong connections. Whilst we have outlined a number of them here, there are many benefits to developing strong and positive connections with the child at the centre of these practices. The connections between babies and young children and the significant adults and peers in their lives are fundamental to children's learning and well-being. Research indicates that early brain development is directly influenced by relationships and day-to-day interactions between children, their key practitioners, and their peers. Young children need to form warm, stable, and secure attachments with emotionally attuned, responsive practitioners to promote their brain development and learning and their ability to regulate emotions. The connections a young child makes with their caregivers and extended support network provides a secure base necessary to explore, learn and relate, and the well-being, motivation and opportunity to do so. This key message relates to the impact of the earliest learning and care experiences on the child's future learning trajectory. For young children to thrive and have a good start on their lifelong learning journey, they need to be nurtured through positive adult-child responsive relationships. An effective early childhood system that is supported through early years education inspection from birth to 6 will ensure that those caring for babies and young children are supported in their understanding of what constitutes quality in early childhood provision. Early years education inspections support shared understandings of the early years quality framework, which provides a bedrock for positive lifelong learning. The quality framework is informed by the principles of ASHTER, the Early Childhood Curriculum Framework, and SHIELTA, the National Quality Framework for Early Childhood Education, as well as national and international research related to early childhood education and inspection. High-quality early childhood experiences ensure that the building blocks for basic skills and competencies are put in place. High-quality early education that lays the foundations for future learning is important for all children. It promotes participation, strengthens social inclusion, and embraces diversity through the integration of additional supports and services for children and families with additional needs. It is the Department of Education's mission to facilitate all children and young people through learning to achieve their full potential. The promotion of equality and human rights and ensuring access to an equitable system underpins our mission and drives our day-to-day work as an inspectorate.
Excellence in learning for all is the mission of the Inspectorate of the Department of Education, to facilitate all children and young people through learning to achieve their full potential. The promotion of equality and human rights and ensuring access to an equitable system underpins our work as an inspectorate. High-quality educational experiences in early childhood contribute significantly to lifelong learning success. Our goal as a department is to provide every child and young person with a learning experience that supports them to reach their potential and to develop the knowledge and skills that they need to navigate in today's complex world. To achieve this goal, we need to look at the learning journey of the child from birth. The scope of both ASHTER and SHIELTA in reaching all settings for children aged from birth to 6 provides a great basis for all involved in the learning and care of young babies and children, and establishes a sound foundation for the lifelong learning journey of the child. The Birth to 6 Early Years Education Inspection Framework ensures that coherence and continuity will be promoted across the education continuum from birth to 18 years and provides quality assurance of state-funded provision and practice in support of learning from birth to the end of formal schooling. The sensitive management of transitions, continuity of care, relationships, and positive, high-quality early learning experiences are the foundation of children's well-being and holistic development. Transitions happen on an ongoing basis from the very beginning, from when the young child enters the early education setting, until the teenager emerges at the end of post-primary education. In addition to promoting improvement, our role is also about accountability. That is, quality assuring and reporting back to others about quality, standards, educational opportunities, and experiences and issues of educational equity. This accountability dimension of our function helps assure trust in the education system. It is about providing transparency to parents, children, and young people, and the public generally, about the quality of the lifelong educational journey for children and young people, from their earliest experiences in early education settings right through to the end of the senior cycle at second level. By engaging in birth to 6 early years education inspection, the Inspectorate of the Department of Education will have oversight of the entire education continuum from birth to 18, providing quality assurance of state-funded provision and practice in support of learning from birth to the end of formal schooling.
Thank you, Elaine, Trina, Jenny and Catherine for sharing these important messages with us this afternoon. We look forward to seeing how these translate into practice when we are out on our trials in early learning and care settings in the coming weeks. The lived experience of practitioners and children is our richest source of information when developing our inspection processes. Take, for example, what Orla has said this afternoon when she talked about removing the clocks from the rooms and slowing the pace of the day to match the children's needs. That is such a wonderful image to take forward into our inspection development process, and we look forward to gaining much more examples of such effective practice as we go out into the trial phase of our consultation period. As I said already, our consultation will start now as soon as the gov.ie page goes live, which will happen early next week when we've taken on board all of the feedback that we receive after today's session and have our translated versions in Irish and English available for you to share through the gov.ie dedicated web page. All of you who have registered for today's session will receive an email with a link to that page as soon as it goes live. We are really looking forward to hearing from you, as it is only by your engagement with us that we can truly produce the tools and processes of inspection that will support quality in early learning across the rich diversity of provision and practice that comprises the early learning and care sector in Ireland. As I already said, we have from now until February 22 to engage in this consultation process. At that point, and we hope then that the public health environment will allow us to meet in person, we will stage a series of feedback seminars, face-to-face I hope, to share with you the analysis of all the comments and feedback that were received during the consultation phase. We'll also share at that point the updated draft guide. These seminars will also give us an opportunity to refine and make the final adjustments to our draft guide to inspection before we present it to the Ministers for Education and for Children, and they then sign off for their approval, and we can take forward our inspection programme once this has been signed off. We anticipate that that will happen around about Easter 2022. During these feedback seminars, we will also invite the participants in our trials to give you their feedback on what it was like to be inspected by us. We know from previous experience that this has really given an authentic sense of what it is like to have an early years education inspection to all of those who are likely to experience them into the future. And we also look forward to hearing the authentic feedback and sometimes unvarnished truth that they will share with us about that experience of being inspected. It's our intention to finalise the guide, as I said, by Easter 2022, and we hope then to begin inspection to our new guide after that point. I realise that today you've been asked to take on board an awful lot of information, but you'll be delighted to hear that it's all been recorded. And it will be available on the dedicated gov.ie webpage as soon as we have finalised the recording and we have it uploaded, which should take place, I hope, early next week. If you're in a position to support networking events for parents or practitioners, we would really be delighted if you would use these recordings to support some discussions around the revised guide to early years education inspection for birth to 6 provision. Because this feedback would be really valuable for us as we begin to take our processes of redeveloping our inspection framework forward. You can provide us with feedback through a dedicated survey that will also be hosted on the gov.ie website. You can provide feedback as an individual, or we would also welcome submissions to our dedicated email address, eyeinspectorate@gov.ie. But don't worry about writing it down now. You can actually find that on the dedicated webpage as well in the coming weeks. So it just finally remains for me to say thank you all for listening to us today, and I'm going to hand over now to Yvonne, who will close our session. Thank you very much, Marisa. To conclude, I would like to say thank you. First of all, thank you to all of our contributors here today, and a very special word of thanks also to all of you for joining us online for this consultation launch. We really would encourage you to send in your feedback, your views, your perspective as the consultation progresses over the weeks and months ahead. So once again, thanks for being here today. Míle buíochas Steve Golair agus Slán Tama.